Hello, and thank you for joining us on Hello Mayor. I'm City of Las Vegas Mayor Carolyn Goodman. The growth in downtown Las Vegas for more than a decade has been extraordinary. From the building and success of the Smith Center to the growth of East Fremont, it's an exciting time to be in our city. It took a lot of legwork to get to this point, however. A little later on, Myron Martin from the Smith Center will be here to talk about the immense growth we've seen in the cultural arts, but first joining me to talk about our journey to become a world-class city is my favorite and only husband, former Mayor Oscar Goodman.
Hello, Mayor.
Hi, sweetheart. How
How
are
are you? Well, I'm admonished not to talk about myself, so I have very little to say. Why don't you handle the show?
Okay. Well, let's talk about what we came and saw when you became mayor in 1999. I remember you always saying, not only don't I know what to do, I don't even know where City Hall is, but one of the first things you did was turn to a friend of ours, Dan Van Epp, who was then head of Howard Hughes Corporation.
Well, there's a little bit of history that precedes
Okay.
that.
Okay.
For years, I was practicing law in Las Vegas and elsewhere, and I ran for mayor, and I was fortunate enough to win. And I really had never been to City Hall in my life.
I didn't know that.
No, never there. There was no reason for me to be there because I wasn't doing that kind of work as a lawyer. And I came down to City Hall, and I walked from my law office to City Hall. And it's funny, when you have the same pair of eyeglasses on that you had when you were practicing law, but when you're the mayor, everything looks different. And I was seeing the first signs, and I didn't even know what the word meant, blight. Signs of blight. There were storefronts that were closing up. I saw folks who were working the downtown, leaving the downtown and starting their businesses elsewhere. At 5 o'clock, as though somebody had an alarm and everybody went away, and the streets weren't clean. It wasn't crisp. It was lethargic, really. Everybody was like asleep as far as the downtown was concerned. And in my travels practicing law, I had been to places like San Diego before they had the gas lamp district there, and it was a mess with little bugs in the doorways and the bums all over the street and prostitutes just walking up and down Broadway there. And same thing in Philadelphia before they fixed that place up. And Newark was like a war zone. And I said to myself, because I didn't know what a mayor was supposed to do, I discovered what I'm going to do. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that Las Vegas does not become like these other places and that we revitalize our downtown, because I likened it to the core of an apple. You know, when the core of the apple begins to rot, then the apple rots and then the whole bushel rots as well, and there would be a reverberation taking place. So that's where I was concentrating my efforts. Now, when I was running for mayor, I was very critical of developers. That was one of my campaign platforms.
Mm-hmm.
And Dan Van Epp, who was the president of the Howard Hughes Corporation and a very well-respected gentleman in our community, really took the position that I would be the worst thing that ever happened to Las Vegas, that I would set Las Vegas back 100 years, and didn't want any part of me. So I get elected, and I was out at UNLV one day. I tried to get involved with the community. I was speaking to one of the classes out there, and Dan Van Epp happened to be on the campus. And he said, Mayor, could I talk to you? I said, I'm not particularly interested in talking to you, Mr. Van Epp. I mean, you weren't kind to me when I was running for office. He says, yeah, but I want to let you know that I see how hard you're working, and I want to take back that position. Is there any way I could help you? And I said, to be honest with you, I can't think of a better person to try to help me, because I know what I want to do. I want to revitalize the downtown, but I don't know how to do it. And I need a 101 course on how to revitalize the downtown. And Dan was true to his word. You and myself were his guests. We flew down to Columbia, Maryland, which is right outside of Washington, D.C., and he put us at the table with the CEO of the Rouse Corporation. I mean, this was a big deal, very important.
The ones who did the forum shops as well?
Well, no, what they did back east, Rouse did the Penn's Landing in Philadelphia.
All right.
They did the Faneuil Hall up in Boston. They did the Seaport in New York. I mean, these were real developers.
Substantive.
And I said to him, I said, I really need a baby course. I need a 101 baby course on how to develop a downtown. And you were sitting there with me, and you heard what he said. I poured out my heart to him, and at the end of the day, he says, you need land. He says, unless you have land, you're not going to be able to do what you say you're going to
So
do.
take us from that point to, there's so much to talk about here, and if we go on with this, we'll never get to what I'm trying to get to, and because I've known you for so many years, I can say it. So let's
Have I said I yet? Have I said?
No.
Have I talked about myself yet?
No.
Okay.
So here we are. You know, there is no land. That the city is landlocked basically. And what did you do?
Well, the city was landlocked, and I went home and I was distraught because, as a lawyer, my phone was ringing all the time. As the mayor, nothing was happening, and I just saw it was getting worse and worse and worse as a downtown. Then one day, the light bulb went on.
An epiphany.
Well, an epiphany, if you want to use a big word, to me it was a light bulb. The light bulb went on, and I realized that I was driving from our home, which is near Rancho and Charleston, down to City Hall, passing
The old City Hall.
the old City Hall at 4th and Stewart, going down past a piece of land every single day. Didn't even know it was there. It didn't mean anything to me. It always sat fallow. Nothing was happening. And it was a Union Pacific Railroad site. And they had about 61 acres there. And nothing was happening on it. They had a little shack, which was close to Charleston. And I said,
And it was dirty. It was dirty soil.
well, as far as it had to be remediated, we found that out because with all the oils and greases of the railroad trains and tracks and everything is seeped into.
So knowing you, I know you went into it to try to find out who owned it, how do I buy
Correct.
it, what do I do?
Yep.
So what
I-
did you do?
Well, I found out that the union, I called up the CEO of the Union Pacific in Omaha, and he said, we don't own that piece of land. We own the land around it. That land is owned by Lehman Brothers. They had acquired it in a foreclosure. There was a fellow from Denver who was going to build, believe it or not, an NFL stadium there back in those days.
Wow, that's where your passion first showed. on
Right, and
sports.
he went under. He went into foreclosure, and Lehman Brothers, which had arranged the financing, took over the property. Now, they were not in the business of real estate. They just were, the property was just sitting there. They were paying taxes on it. I found out who was the head of Lehman Brothers and got on the phone and made an appointment to go back to New York and went back there. I think I went back by myself on this trip.
I know I didn't go.
Okay, and sat down with the big shot at Lehman Brothers, and he said, everything's for sale. And I said, I know that, but I don't know.
So what did you ultimately do with
Okay,
it then?
they put a price tag of $33 million on the 61 acres. The city didn't have that kind of money, but we had smart people in the city who said to me, well, we've got the technology park up near Westlake Mead and Tenaya. Why don't we trade land there, which is readily disposable by Lehman Brothers? All they have to do is put up a sign it's going to sell and trade them for the land that was downtown. And that was very important. I'll tell you why, Mayor. Because prior administrations, in particular the Jan Jones administration, engaged in what's called condemnation. They would take land and condemn it and then give the land to either public sources or private sources. And I said, I'm not going to do that. I think that's very, very unfair. Even though the Supreme Court of the United States says cities could do that, I just didn't like the idea of taking from private and giving to private. It just didn't sit well with me. So I made up my mind that we were going to get that piece of land, and then Dan Van Epp comes back in the picture again. He says, you know what your legacy is going to be, Oscar? I said, I have no idea. I'm not interested in legacies right now. I want to revitalize the downtown. He said, your legacy is acquiring that land, that 61 acres, and land banking it. Don't do anything with it. It will become the most valuable piece of land in all of Las Vegas, because people who are moving out to Summerlin and out to Green Valley, they're going to realize that the heart of Las Vegas, the business heart of Las Vegas, is downtown, and they're going to want to live and work and play there. And so land bank it. And I said, you know, that's fine from your perspective. But you know, being the mayor, that mayors, particularly with the term limits, have a finite amount of time to get something done. And we're not satisfied just having acquiring a piece of land which is valuable. We
But you
feel,
had a dream,
yes,
too.
right.
for
I
it.
had a dream because
Which was?
the dream was very simple. I wanted to be a great world-class city. And world-class cities have three things. One, they have great culture, they have great academic medicine, and they have great sports. And those are the three things that I felt the 61-acre, which was the epicenter of the entire valley here, right in the heart of everything, that would be the ideal place for it.
Because of where we have arrived today in the sports arena, we know, because I've said it and everybody says it, that you were on the phone with Commissioner Bettman trying to get hockey. And
I went back and visited with him and David Stern.
David Stern
Right.
for NBA, and just on and on. So that piece aside, what at that point here, you've got the 61 acres, and we have touched on the fact that it was dirty soil.
Yeah, we had to remediate it. That was part of whatever deal that we
and
made.
who paid for that?
Basically, the city paid for that, but it was in the process. It was taken into consideration when we were dealing with potential purchasers of the land to make sure that the deal was appropriate as far as the city was concerned financially.
We knew the county was in with their beautiful building
It's a
was
beautiful
sitting
building,
right
yes.
there. Was not the very next piece the premium outlets?
It wasn't
that
there
went?
then.
No, what I'm saying is
Yes.
we're now starting.
It was a
to
premium
build.
outlets, and everybody laughed. They said, "Oh, who wants to have a shopping center in the heart of downtown? They're supposed to be out in the suburbs."
And this is an outdoor discount mall.
That's correct. And you know, it's funny when a mayor says something, people believe it. And after a while, I began talking about it. And I said, "It's the most successful downtown outdoor mall in the world." And basically, it has reached that status. It started off with just a couple stores, and then they kept on improving it and adding more stores and more stores.
Expanded just a
And
couple of years
I
ago.
understand that-
Simon Company, it's awesome.
That's correct. I understand that they have about 10,000 people go down there a day, which is amazing.
I think the RTC picks up about 1,200 a day, to say nothing of the private tour. You can't get into the garages, which is why the city's doing something there. So that was the first piece.
That was the first piece. Then
okay,
across the
second
street,
piece.
see, but none of this would have happened unless the city had acquired the 61 acres, which was then called Union Park. The Symphony Park came afterwards, because these people who were ready to come down there and put serious money into their properties wanted to know that the city was behind them. In other words, the city was going to do what a city should do, and that is put their money up where their mouth is. And when you're talking about redevelopment downtown, the city has to participate. So when we acquired the 61 acres and they knew we traded for very valuable land, they became believers. Next group that came in was the World Market Center. Now, not the folks who are running it now.
No.
There were two fellas, Mr. Sampson and Mr. Kashani. I had my fights with them. I had my fights with everybody, but I had my fights with them. And but finally, we worked out a disposition where the city helped them as far as tax increment financing. It's a very interesting
And those
concept.
were the days of Doug Selby as city
Doug
manager.
Selby was
and
our
a
city
very,
manager.
very successful and appreciative city council that really worked very
They were
hard with
100%
you.
behind me.
But talk about the design, because that was John Jurdy, or Jurd.
Jurdy.
Jurdy. Where was he from, and who was the one that was brought? Talk about architectural statements.
Right. We're talking about right now as far as the World Market Center. He designed that. He also designed, as I understand it, the Bellagio. Had a lot to do with the development of the design of Disneyland. So he was a world-class architect. And it was funny. We'll go back to the premium outlets. I always fell in love with the Australian
Opera House at Sydney.
And, you know, I was sitting up there on my little throne in City Hall giving people orders, and I said to the folks, I said, I want this to look like the Opera House. Well, you'll see the big sails
the
that are
little
there. They
tents.
did what I asked, which was nice.
Not only there, but the pavilions
Yep.
that are down there
Very
sort
nice.
of have that same
thing,
aura.
the same thing.
But what was interesting, and I hope we have time for it, because I want to make sure that we have Myron on here, because this is such an exciting time, what was happening. I'm remembering it all. I do remember your passion for eclectic architecture.
Yeah, and the best story about that I could tell you is that Donald Trump came to town. And, you know, he's a developer of these, and I say it respectfully, these silo-type buildings, tall, gleaming, glistening buildings. And he and I went over to the 61 acres, and we walked it. And he said, you know, I'd like to develop the whole thing. And I said, Mr. Trump, I said, you have a great product. but that's not my vision.
Well, and I do recall our trip back there where he had a uniformity to his concept. But let's get back to, because he became president and he's doing what he's doing.
But
it's very important because time's running out.
Oh,
and I
time
have
never
to
runs
keep
out as long as we're healthy.
It absolutely is running out.
No, we're
and
going to
I
make
want
it,
to get
We're going to make it.
No. Eclectic. You wanted eclectic.
Yes, well, that's what I told him. I
So
said, we're not going to
mixed
go
look.
along with that.
Fine. So
I want eclectic architecture. I want the
Okay.
architecture to be interesting in and of
And
itself.
so the John Jurdy building is a remarkable 5 buildings that you need to come down and see. But from there, we had a friend, and a friend by the name of
Larry Ruvo.
Larry Ruvo.
Right.
And what was that, please?
Larry Ruvo was the CEO of Southern Wine and Spirits, which is the largest distributor of beverages in the community here. And his dad, Lou, who owned the Venetian, a
Great restaurant.
great restaurant,
Fabulous.
Italian, and his mom was cooking there, and Larry was a busboy there in those days, and it was just a great place. We became friendly. We used to take our children there to have pizza, and it was a nice place to go. He told me that when his dad passed away from Alzheimer's, that he was going to try to build I would say a monument or memorial.
Tribute to him. Yes.
To his dad, Lou, and he went to his friends. He had a lot of wealthy friends, and he was able to convince them to come up with a giant amount of money, and they were going to build a brain institute, and he was going to do it across from Southern Wine and Spirits, which was at 215 in Jones.
Very far south.
Right, and I said to him, Larry,
And
it's the first time I'm ever asking for a favor from anybody, because I don't ask for favors. I said, if you would please build your brain institute at Symphony Park, it could be the keystone or the cornerstone of the entire project there and the beginning of academic medicine that a great city has to have.
so here we were already. You had Frank Geary's design Cleveland Clinic.
Didn't
They
start
came
with that.
in.
Didn't start with that.
I do know. I'll have to have you back to talk about that
Okay.
and the specifics. But that unbelievable, iconic building where people just come into town, just take a picture of that.
That's correct.
In that beautiful center.
Right, but more important than that, more important than the beauty of the building itself and the uniqueness of
But
it,
your academic research.
is what Larry was able to do. He was able to call upon the Cleveland Clinic and get their great doctors to participate in the Brain Institute and work on all the neurodegenerative diseases. And we know that we are really a very important part of the scientific experimentation as far as Alzheimer's is concerned.
And brain degenerative diseases,
Correct.
which is now spurring on more investment in the University of Nevada, Las Vegas Medical School, and that's all coming part of it. So at this point, then, we have the Premium Outlets, World Market Center, and the Ruvo Cleveland Clinic, Lou Ruvo Institute.
Correct.
So next comes that piece, that huge piece about
cultural piece.
the cultural piece. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a little break right now, and we're going to come back, and we're going to have our good friend Myron Martin here, who's the CEO, president, the best, the most creative, the most enthusiastic man who helped pull this all together, and we'll hear that next spot in just a few moments.
See, we could
So
have had more
stay with
time,
us.
Mayor, if we didn't set our clocks forward.
Go Vegas! It's the newest way to watch City of Las Vegas programming. From Trending Vegas to City Beat, your favorite City of Las Vegas programs are now streaming on demand through our Go Vegas channel on Roku and Apple TV. We're proud to be able to bring city government even closer to you. Be sure to download the Go Vegas channel at the Roku Channel Store and the Apple TV App Store. And for more information on programming, check out kclv.tv.
Finding parking in downtown Las Vegas is easy thanks to the new Park Me app. The free app makes it possible for you to find parking before you even leave your home. Just download the app directly to your iPhone or Android and let Park Me help park you. You'll find the best spot for the best price and never waste time driving around looking for a parking spot again. So next time you're heading to the downtown area, let Park Me do the work and see how easy parking can be. You can even pay using your mobile device.
It opened its doors in 2012 and never looked back. The Smith Center for the Performing Arts has helped make Las Vegas a world-class city. From Broadway shows to major concerts, the Smith Center offers it all. And Myron Martin and my favorite former Mayor Oscar Goodman continue to join me as we take a closer look at the Smith Center and the arts in the heart of our city. In fact, in the jewel of real estate in the entire state of Nevada, in my opinion. So, hello again, my sweetheart.
Nice being here, Mayor.
And Myron, you're also a sweetheart. But how are you? You know, it's wonderful because we have such a varied group of people watching this show. I hear from students, I hear from adults. They're always fascinated. How did somebody get to be where they are? So if you could share just a little bit about your background and were you always interested in the arts as far as a leader? Tell us something.
Well,
Born and raised. Now there, right to
okay,
start.
so I moved here 20-ish
No,
years
I
ago
wanna
from
know
New York.
born and
From New York, and I was quoted in the Review Journal saying that I had moved to a cultural wasteland. Really was. And all of a sudden, I was charged with changing it, right? I was here looking after the Liberace Foundation and all the work that they were
wow.
doing. Went to UNLV and ran the Performing Arts Center there. And that became the reason why I had a vantage point that suggested that we really were a city deserving of a truly world-class performing arts center.
Your studies and everything, were they more focused in business
Yeah.
and management rather than in particular the arts?
So my undergrad was in music, my second undergrad was in business, and then I have an MBA in business. And that's why a guy named Don Snyder and I became so close, because he's the consummate businessman. And when he and Keith Bowman and Nancy Housels and this group of people started dreaming about a world-class performing arts center, they brought me in, and I could bridge that gap between arts and business. And
So you were first then at the university before any of this really
that's right.
took hold.
Well, when I first moved to Las Vegas, it was to run the Liberace Foundation.
Wow.
And then I went to the university. And then while at the university, started this wonderful journey of creating a world-class performing arts center.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, as I recall back in that day, I think there was another group of people who wanted more of an amphitheater, outdoor environment. And then I remember Don Snyder with Dr. Keith Bowman and Nancy Housel, who was then, of course, part of the Nevada Ballet, which she helped create and
Created
found.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
And so what happened at that point? Were you in on this whole venture, or was Oscar reaching out, and where were you?
Well, so let me go back even before the Mayor's Goodman and say that I remember a meeting that we had with Mayor Jan Jones when there were two groups of people dreaming of some kind of world-class performing arts facility. We believed that it needed to be in the downtown, in the heart of our city, accessible by everyone. And the other group wanted it to be in Summerlin, and a completely different approach. And so we asked Mayor Jan to kind of weigh them both and to make a decision, because as Don Snyder said, it's hard to do one of these. It's impossible to do two. So that's how my journey started.
Give us about a year there. What year are you talking about? In the late 1990s. Oscar became mayor in 99.
So this was obviously pre-99. It was probably in 96.
And the birth really, Summerlin was really just starting to explode. That was 25,000 acre, a few site that just began all their development and housing and everything else. So that's probably why there was that push as well.
Yeah, there was a
Made
lot of
sense.
growth in that direction, and there were a lot of people there, but we believed that a truly world-class performing arts center needed to include everyone in the community. And as I said way back then, that this should be the living room for Las Vegas. And when you're out in a suburb, it's not necessarily accessible to everyone. It's not the living room for the entire community. The Smith Center became that in downtown Las Vegas.
So at that point, your group that had grown inordinately large, I thought. And I remember you started to talk about that this was sort of the really big piece.
Well, it was critical to my, quote, vision. I mean, as far as the academic medicine, we had the RUVO come in there. And the thing that we needed something which was of great importance and consequence as far as culture was concerned. So I'm not sure how we got together on that. You must have called City Hall, said, let's sit down, and I think that you made a proposal saying that you'd like to have a performing arts center, a world-class performing arts center in the downtown. And I said, I have just the piece.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly what happened. Don Snyder and I visited with you. You immediately were on board. You saw this vision and knew what it could do for downtowns because we showed examples. Newark, New Jersey was a place you didn't want to go to during the
we're
daytime.
from back there.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
but,
true.
but the NJ PAC, the Performing Arts Center of New Jersey, was built, and people now go to Newark at night. 300 and something nights a year, and they've engaged the downtown, and because of it, they've built more and more office buildings and places to live and places to eat. And the same is true in Cerritos, California, and Orange County, and Fort Worth, Texas.
Did you travel with Don and go look at cities?
Sure,
And some
Not
which
only
ones?
that, you know, what impressed me so much is they went all over the world. It wasn't just a situation of going to Newark or to San Diego. They were over there, they saw La Scala.
Well, we did. In the early days, we focused on the transformative effect that a performing arts center would have on a city. Therefore, we traveled to Newark and Fort Worth
Right.
and all of those cities. And then when we got into design, of course, we had to go to the meccas around the world.
So how did you don't do an RFP on something that grand, I'm sure, because you want what you see, what you know is going to be magnificent
Yeah.
and transformative. So how did you go about finding David Schwartz?
Well, so we did an RFP. We did a worldwide search for architects. We had a great response from around the world, and we narrowed it down to 12, and then to 6, and then to 3, and then selected David Schwartz out of Washington, D.C., because he had a way of imagining these timeless buildings that are built today, but might look like they've been around for a while. And we liked that. In a city where we tear our buildings down every 10 or 20 years, we wanted to build something that would last for generations. That was one of the things that Oscar liked about our project, is that we weren't going to scrimp. We weren't going to do it the cheap way. We were going to raise enough money to really do it right.
And we took a trip together.
We did.
One of the great trips of all time, and it included going down to the Kravis Performing Arts Center in West Palm Beach, Florida, and it was awesome. I walked in there, and he
Who was the
laughed.
architect on that?
Well, so we saw buildings around the country from various architects. Some that we aspired to embrace, and others that we saw value in, but maybe didn't want to hire the architect. So the beauty of the West Palm Beach trip was that this is another example of a building that was built in a blighted area that no one wanted to hang out in.
That's true.
And after they built it, development happened like crazy. And we had lunch in a place called City Place, a 60-ish acre development.
Beautiful.
That the related companies put together.
That's correct.
And after lunch, we went to the Kravis Center and we toured the place. And Mayor, I know you've heard the story, but I have to tell you what my friend said that day. We're getting a great tour.
Yes.
And Judy Mitchell, the lady who runs the place, is standing on the stage, and we're sitting about the 5th row. And I see Oscar looking around, and he'd been our best cheerleader. Like every chance he had to say, we're the largest community in North America without a world-class performing arts center, and we need to change that. I thought he knew everything he needed to know. And as he's looking around, he nudges me with his elbow, and he says, so is this what we're going to build? Is this what we're going to build? And I said, well, yeah, Mayor, something like this. And with the lady still talking on stage, he says something like, holy crud, we got to have one of these.
Well, that's a euphemism. That was a euphemism.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Oh, I love it.
But that was the moment that we knew that we had to talk to the community and help people understand what we meant when we said the best in quality, world-class facility.
And I got to say this real fast,
Okay,
because
very fast.
because Myron said we had to talk to the community. Everything that we tried to do, which we felt was in the best interest of the community, there were people out there who did not want the city to make deals with anybody. They felt it was going to affect their tax-paying status, and they were very, very critical of anything, including the Performing Arts Center. And where the vindication took place, the very people who were complaining and writing letters to the editor, opening night, they were there. And at the end of it, they thought I had something to do with this. They came to me and they said, "Mayor, you were right. This is great for Las Vegas."
And can I tell you something? 6 years later, we've been open 6 years now.
Lucky me, during my term it
Exactly,
opened.
exactly. What a great time opening night was, but every night since. Here are the facts. More than 2 million people have come through the doors.
Phenomenal.
500,000 students have come to be
right.
inspired by the arts on field trips and workshops and master classes. And when we opened, I had this dream that maybe, just maybe, we would make the Polestar magazine list of the top 200 theaters in the world. That was my dream. And in year one, and in every year since, not only have we been in the top 200 theaters in the world, but we've been in the top 10.
Yep.
That is so awesome. Now, for those who haven't been down there, shame on you, but tell us about that fabulous, fabulous facility. The stonework, the concept, the artwork that you have embraced in it, the look of it. What does it mean? How much did the building cost?
So all
And
in
the
the
acoustics.
the total project cost was $470 million. That includes the value of the land, the parking, the infrastructure, the environmental cleanup, because as you were talking earlier,
Right.
this was the Union Pacific's railroad yard. But this is a David Schwartz design using real materials. As you walk around the building, you are touching Indiana limestone. Why Indiana limestone? Because it's timeless and elegant and it lasts forever. Something like 42 of the state capitals in America are built from Indiana limestone. Yankee
knew
Stadium
that.
is built from Indiana limestone. Important buildings
Right.
are built from Indiana limestone. So that's what we have at the Smith Center. David Schwartz's design includes that bell tower.
Beautiful.
And the bell tower has 4 octaves of real bells, including the lowest one is 6 feet tall and 5 feet wide. It weighs tons.
Not computer, automated.
That's right.
This
real
is
deal.
the real thing.
Yes. And all the materials, LEED certified. We're the first LEED certified performing arts center of our size anywhere in the country because we use real materials. You walk into the grand lobby and the floors and the walls are all covered in Italian marble, which means we're never going to have to paint it. We're never going to take the sheetrock out and send it out to the dump. It's going to look just like it looks 100 years from now, just like those buildings that you talked about that we toured throughout Europe.
How about the acoustics?
Well, yeah, so the first 3 people we hired were the acoustician, the theater planner to make sure that the seats were configured properly, and the architect. We hired them together as a team, and we said acoustics are critical. And so let's not cut any corners, let's not do anything that could in any way jeopardize world-class acoustics. Right down to things like, I wanted carpeting in our boxes. You know those boxes that go around the curve? I wanted carpeting because I thought it'd be luxurious. The acoustician said, I can give you carpet, but I can no longer guarantee Carnegie Hall or better acoustics. I gave up on carpet, right? Because that was too important to us.
And you don't even know it when you're in there that it isn't carpeted.
Well, it's terrazzo. It's this beautiful
It's
flooring.
better than carpeting.
Yeah, no, and it'll look exactly like that years from now. Why terrazzo? Because David Schwartz was inspired by the Hoover Dam. You know, when it was built, it made Las Vegas a city, and its architecture is kind of a masculine Art Deco, and that's where he got the inspiration to design the Smith Center. And in the Hoover Dam, the public areas are coated in terrazzo flooring.
See, isn't that absolutely incredible? Now, beyond the grand room, the Reynolds Hall, what else is in the Smith Center?
Well, so many things. Of course, Symphony Park, the park at the front door of the Smith Center, which includes an incredible Tim Bavington sculpture, you know,
Right.
the vertical lines of different colors
The organ
and different
pipes,
widths.
I call them,
Yes,
but they're beautiful.
Yes. And by the way, if you know his code of colors and widths, you could pick out that the notes that he's playing are the notes of Aaron Copland's Fanfare for the Common Man.
Oh, isn't that great? I didn't know that.
Because we wanted this to
And
be for
Charles
everyone.
Vanda's wife was Aaron Copland's daughter, as I recall. So when we
Small
used
world.
to, it is a small world. And when we used to go out to the Ham Hall at the university, which was the only place you could go for
Yeah.
orchestral music, he was out there quite frequently, and just remember so many of his pieces, so beautiful.
Well, and listen, I think this is the perfect time for me to tip my hat to UNLV and thank UNLV for giving this community its doses of culture for all of those years.
Right, there was
and
nothing else.
There wasn't, and we owe them a great debt of thanks for
Right.
that.
So then, as far as the other, you have some smaller areas for smaller performances?
Yes,
What do
so
we have?
along with the park and with Reynolds Hall, we have the Troche Studio Theater. It's a place where we do children's theater performances. We do music. We do receptions. We had a wedding there the other day.
Oh,
There are all
beautiful.
kinds of spaces. And then our last place is called Cabaret Jazz. See, I still can't quite get it out of my mouth because the board was nice enough on our 5th anniversary a year ago to rename Cabaret Jazz. It's now called Myron's Cabaret Jazz.
Which I love.
And it's
well
my love.
deserved.
It's my passion. It was my baby during design.
You majored in music. Do you play?
I did once upon a time. I play for my own amusement or amazement these days. But I no longer consider myself a musician, especially when I'm surrounded by such incredible talent that comes and fills our stages every day.
It's so phenomenally exciting. Tell us a little bit. Are you home to any groups? Which I know the
Well,
answer, but
of course,
let you.
of course. You talked about Nancy Housel's creating the Nevada Ballet Theater. They are one of our resident companies. They have grown immensely in the 6 years with Beth Barbary and a new artistic director that was just hired. We're thrilled to have them in the building, as well as the Las Vegas Philharmonic, which has grown even more. I mean, what the maestro has done, Cabrera has done to bring the level of excellence up in that orchestra is amazing. We're thrilled to have both of them. Of course, we're the home to Broadway in Las Vegas. We get all the big tours.
Now, how is that arranged? How do you pick?
Well, so how do you pick Broadway
I
shows?
read about Hamilton that, Hamilton could keep going and you could keep filling.
Yes.
But
yes.
what happens? How do you get to select, and how do you know on revivals?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. It starts with the fact that I'm a voter for the Tony Awards. And because of that responsibility, I'm required to go back and see every new show each season. And so when I am knocked out by a performance, long before the tours get started, I raise my hand and say, we want you in Las Vegas.
Wow.
As soon as you're ready to talk about a tour, let's talk about Las Vegas. And in fact, we've even launched tours from the Smith Center. Kinky Boots National Tour started right here in Las
I
Vegas.
didn't know that. We saw
Yeah.
that. We loved that.
So when we opened, we had to beg Broadway tours to come to Las Vegas. Now, every producer calls us because Las Vegas is one of the most important stops on the Broadway tours.
And I've never been to the Smith Center for a Broadway production where it hasn't been sold out.
Yeah, we're fortunate.
Never seen an empty seat.
For most Broadway shows, we only have 1 week of performances, 8 shows. And we have something like 12,000 season ticket holders. So yeah, we do sell out for those shows. And of course, I have to mention, because I get asked every day, how do you get tickets for Hamilton? Hamilton's coming in late May and for most of June. Single tickets we have announced will go on sale in late April. And so for everybody wanting to see this show, the producers are doing all they can to make sure that real people get their hands on the real tickets before they are put out in the secondary market and scalped and marked up and all of that. So look for the date in late April. And come down to the Smith Center if you want to see the
Now,
show Hamilton.
because of setting up staging and everything, and everything that you have to do to have a performance be really sensational and highest quality, is there any time that it's dark in Smith Center and it's a downtime, purposefully a downtime? And secondarily, has there ever done anything with ingenue, anything in competitive between something starting up, whether it's singing groups or anything like that, local?
Well, a lot of things. So let me start with that. First Wednesday of every month is something called Composer Showcase. This is where I call them the show kids, the professionals, musicians and songwriters who were involved in all the shows up and down the Strip, get together and they try out new music.
Beautiful.
And from Composer Showcase.
Now, is that open to the public?
It's open to the public.
At
Tickets
cost?
go on sale, and it sells out every month. It's on Wednesdays. Keith Thompson is the music director here in town that created it. It's
Brilliant.
always fun.
Brilliant. We
And-
had such talent here.
Oh,
when
my
those
gosh.
shows were live before canned music, I mean, we were just amazed at the high quality of talent that we have that still live here.
It's
So
the
how
truth.
fabulous.
And out of Composer Showcase came a brand new Broadway musical that was launched on Broadway a year and a half ago called Bandstand. Local composers were really successful, on Broadway.
Wow.
And Keith Thompson got to introduce some of the songs from the musical Idaho, which we launched here at the Smith Center as a part of that program.
I'm so proud. This
There's
is
so much going
it's
on
so
in Las
wonderful.
Vegas. And to answer your second part of your question, are there ever dark times? Not many. Not many. A Broadway show is a science. I mean, our stage crew is the best in the world at getting shows in and out. People love coming to the Smith Center because the crew is so good, because the backstage facilities are so beautiful that we take good care of them. But a Broadway show will leave wherever they were before. Let's say it's Phoenix on a Sunday. They drive overnight, and by Monday morning, they are loading in, and they have 18 hours. They get sometimes as many as 18 or 20 trucks full of staging, mounted and ready to go for our opening night, which is almost always on Tuesday night.
Well, and I've been there, sadly, for memorials that were very special, that created and needed some type of staging and performance, but they had to be out and finished at a certain time so you could get the stage set up again for the nighttime performance of the show. So you're doing more than that. Do you have any soloists come in? Do you have any?
So the Smith Center is home to music, theater, and dance from around the world, the greatest virtuosos that exist. And of course, we've had people like Yo-Yo Ma and Itzhak Perlman, and you and I were talking about a great soloist.
Yeah, Joshua Bell and the St. Martin of the Field. Talking about the great soloists and the great musicians coming here. You have to tie that in with the acoustics. Because I'll never forget when we went down there, Bell is playing his beautiful violin, and we're in heaven, and somebody had to go to the restroom, I guess, and started to get up, and there was a little squeak up in the balcony, and he stopped playing. And he looked up, he gave him a look, if looks could kill. The person never made it to the restroom, but that's how good the acoustics are there. It's phenomenal. Just a little squeak stopped the whole show.
Well, the acoustics really are good, and I like to think of it from the person sitting in the audience, getting this great sound. But you're right, sometimes a cough in the wrong place can be heard.
Yes.
Well, and so what are the plans for the future? What are you looking to put in there?
Well, so...
I mean, you have so many rooms.
Well, we do. And Cabaret Jazz has been called the best-sounding jazz club in America by Branford Marsalis. People are standing in line to perform there now. And it's 6-7 days a week now. Cabaret Jazz is
Isn't
full.
that beautiful?
We
And is that only in the evenings, or you have matinees as well?
Like all of our spaces, Cabaret Jazz can be home to a great performer on a weekend night, but it could be someone's dinner party, it could be a corporate event, it could be a memorial service, it could be the wedding reception for our friend Norm Clark from the
of
RJ.
course.
Yes,
Remember,
I married
you married them in
him
the
and Kara,
courtyard,
right? I sure did, and their dog.
That's right. That's right.
Right.
And we did that in the courtyard and then had dinner and cabaret jazz. All of
Beautiful.
the spaces get used for so many things because we have really become what I hoped we would become, and that's the
yeah.
living room for Las Vegas.
Well, and I remember being at the U.S. Conference of Mayors about 3-4 years ago, and Oscar and I went out to get a bite to eat, and we ran into people who had just come to Las Vegas to come see the Smith Center for Performing Arts, to replicate it in Orlando.
Yeah, Buddy Dyer, the mayor of Orlando, was
Right,
there
he's
with his
still
whole
there.
crew, and he came over to our table and he said, "Boy, do you have something in Las Vegas, and we're going to copy it and we're going to put it down here in Orlando." I said, "What's that?" He said, "The Smith Center Performing Arts."
Yeah,
So
we
talk
spent
to
a lot
us
of time
about the
with,
future.
Well,
What can we look forward to? You probably, part of it's probably very confidential because we're not supposed to know where you signed, but what do you have planned?
Well, so first of all, part of what we have planned is giving back to the world the way the world helped the Las Vegas envision the Smith Center. So when people from Orlando or Australia or wherever they may be coming from want to come and get a tour and have a talk about building a world-class
Do
facility.
you have an ongoing tour group? I mean, docents that come and tour you?
Saturdays, if you want to come take a free tour, we do that every week. And you can go to our website and find out about the tours.
And the children too, students in the schools?
Well, I mentioned something like 500,000 students have been through our doors already. I mean, I'm a kid who in the 4th grade got goosebumps going to a performing arts center field trip.
See, well,
That's
there
why
you
I do
were.
what I do.
That's right.
And that's why we bring so many kids
Well,
to
and
the
I
Smith
know
Center.
Tony Shea would hold his bi-monthly or whatever, these big
All hands
kumbayas,
meetings,
right.
yeah. So Zappos has their big meetings at the
Right.
Smith Center. The list of things that happen there is pretty incredible, and so we're proud of that. And
Okay.
in terms of what's coming next,
Yes.
think of the biggest shows in the world, and those are the shows we're talking about bringing to Las Vegas.
It's the most. Oh, one thing we've forgotten: the magnificent statue that's in the front lobby. Who did that?
Well, so again, we were inspired by the Hoover Dam, and if you think of the two great sculptures out at the dam, sitting down, these winged figures, they're kind of like bookends. We asked a local artist to think about what would happen if those figures, those sitting down winged figures, were inspired by the arts. And he said, well, they would take flight. And so the winged figure that you see in the grand lobby of Reynolds Hall is an homage to the Hoover Dam, where that same sculpture is now taking flight because of the inspiration
And
of the
who's
arts.
the artist?
But because you asked, my mind just went blank, and it's
Okay.
going to come to me in a second.
Okay. In the meantime, we are going to just take, because I know time again. There's just never enough time on this show. The 18B.
18B,
Now
that's-
did that come simultaneously
A little
with
later,
the planning?
a little later. It was an organic
What
growth that
what
took
is
place.
it? It's 18
There
blocks
are 18 blocks in the
initially.
vicinity of Maine and Charleston and that area there. And the locals really created it. It started basically with First Friday. And they had, I don't think they had 30 people out there during First Friday. And now they have tens of thousands of people coming down there. And it's a work in progress, and I think the fact that you have your garden down there, the healing garden from 10-1, it's bringing so many people into the area, and you're going to expand that. I think that's going to be the cornerstone of 18B before it's through. I think everything's going to emanate from that.
It is. It's a magnificent and moving tribute to 1 October. What a terrible time that was, but out of it does come a healing and thank God, a gathering in a good way for things. And I know, but that 18B is obviously well beyond 18 blocks
right,
now.
and they have the little art galleries down there. They have the restaurants that are popping up.
Antiques, all the time, antique
right.
places.
The Funk House.
Galleries.
Right, and
the arts are alive in Las Vegas.
Right.
That's the message.
Yeah.
And, I mean, what a dream come true. But fortunately for me, it was the domino effect. Oscar was planning, got the Rufo up and running, got premium outlets, but we saw that expand. Certainly the world market, but during the day, and thank you, Don Snyder, for all the leadership there and pulling together. I remember the tent high-end opening, that it was definitely a go, And then, of course, the fabulous opening and Mary and Fred Smith, their involvement for the Reynolds Foundation made such a, but it's so exciting because there's so much more that can be done, that will be done. And as we see that blighted area with the prostitution, the drugs, the boarded up buildings, because fortunately for me, I did share that time with Oscar when he was mayor, and to know what it was and to see what it's becoming. And what I learned through this time of Project Neon's work in progress, over 340,000 vehicles go through the Spaghetti Bowl every day. So as we make that more attractive and easier to traverse and can bring people in from, because that's where the 1595 come together, access this wonderful, wonderful, beautiful facility that you've worked so hard in. I know you don't like to sleep either because you get such joy and excitement. Has there ever been any replication of the Liberace thematic performance at the Smith Center?
There hasn't, and there probably should be at some
Yes,
point
yes.
because of my connection. You know, the guy that said too much of a good thing is wonderful, right? Yeah, there probably is a place for that. Philip Fortenberry, who is the hands of Liberace in that big movie, has played at the Smith Center many times, and he's
Wonderful.
one of the most talented musicians in town. You know, you said something. You said thanks to Don Snyder. I have to say, there would be no Smith Center without Don Snyder. He was my partner. He talks about us being locked at the hip. This project couldn't have happened without him. And of course, the Smith Center wouldn't have happened without Smith, Fred W. Smith and the Donald W. Reynolds Foundation.
Right.
I don't go a day without thanking them publicly.
Yes.
And there wouldn't be a Smith Center without Oscar B. Goodman, because it took his leadership to help us talk about the vision that would be a game changer for downtown Las Vegas. So thanks for letting me get in my plug of thanks for the people that are responsible.
I did invite Don here today,
Yes,
but
he
of
wanted
course
to be
he's
here.
in New York. And in actuality, since we only have a couple of minutes left, he couldn't have gotten a word in edgewise. And it has been a true effort on my husband's part not to come back out, because I can see his eyes twinkling and knowing
we have
everything.
some stories we'd like to tell. You better have us back.
Have you back to tell your tales.
I mean, when we went looking.
No, you can't do it now. And Clint Holmes, oh my gosh, and how
It's
and
his
your
home. It's his home.
and Norm Clark's conversations and the different meetings. That is so much.
And John Ralston had his first
Who's
big
he?
political event at the
My
Smith
buddy,
Center.
my buddy.
And of course, we're always there for the city of Las Vegas. You are our partner. I hope everyone listening knows that when I say there wouldn't be a Smith Center without Oscar, there wouldn't be a Smith Center without Carolyn Goodman and the entire staff here at the City of Las Vegas.
Fabulous, fabulous staff. We're so excited about the future, and we have so many wonderful cultural places now. We have, of course, the continuation of the Natural History Museum. We have the Boneyard, the Neon Museum. We have the fabulous Mob Museum, which also in a 5-year time period
Amazing.
got accredited and paid back.
And you know what you're going to have? You're going to have the last step in the completion of this dream. You're going to have people living down there right across the street from the Smith
Well, and
Center
guess
who
what?
will be able to walk through Symphony
We
Park.
have
and
signed that right now, 2 for starters.
Yes.
Mixed use, residential, and which probably haven't told you. And then there are also some very exciting things that are coming that really are going to be such an incredible positive for it. Plus, we have our loop, which drives everybody around for free, which I love. We can get all around the downtown
But wouldn't it be
area.
great to live down there and to walk to the Smith Center and
To stop and have a drink on the way and have dinner.
I
He'd
mean,
like to have more than one drink. You know,
No, he
and I
meant a
know-
bottle.
Yeah, whatever
And the
you want.
hotels really are making sure that people come to their restaurants in the hotels or any of the downtown restaurants and then come over to the performances.
But think about the economic impact the Smith Center's had
It's
on
been
all of those restaurants alone.
Oh, I'll tell you, I'm not plugging Oscars, but when the Smith Center has a show, and this is applicable to every other place downtown, You can't get into the restaurants. That's how successful it is.
Well, and wait till all the roads are fixed. Anyway, thank you so much for being here, and so thrilled to have you, Myron. What a saint you've been for our city. And of course, it's been such a joy being married to the most fabulous mayor and partner and love in the whole world, my husband. Who would have thunk a criminal attorney of 35 years could have gotten so excited about being mayor of such a great city?
I don't know, maybe Tony Spilaccio would have thought it.
Well, this city loves both of you.
Well, thank you. As you do, we adore this place. We love the people. We love what's happening. And we are just getting loftier and loftier and loftier. And we are there. We are there. And Smith Center Performing Arts, awesome.
And I'm so happy that he's our friend.
Thank you.
I
This is the
gotcha.
most beautiful man. Two beautiful men. Aren't I lucky to have them in my life? Thank you all for watching us. We'll see you at the next Hello, Mayor.